Welcome to the Boxing Source Podcast, where we go over the latest news in boxing and react to all of the fights that happened in the past week. Now, let's go to our host, J.R. Bell. Yo, microphone check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Microphone check 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. What's up? What's going on? What's good, everybody? Here we are. Yeah, it is Monday, December 1st, 2025. Yes, this is a live session here. Usually, you have it Sundays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, but this weekend, your host here had a event that he pretty much was part of. I was out and about yesterday, and was like up until probably like 5 in the morning or something like that. So couldn't do the show yesterday. Had to push it back to today, here for this edition of the Boxing Source podcast. And we have a couple of things here that we're going to be touching on here real quick. Nothing too, I would say, extensive or whatever it is. We had the thing there as far as like some news, big news here in the boxing wire today. Something that we have basically been waiting for almost like 4 months. We've been waiting for it for like 4 months now. And they finally announce it. They finally make it official or whatnot. And, we're going to be, going over that here in this particular edition of the podcast. And so, I have a press release. So we're going to go over the press release and things like that. And, I'll have my reaction to this being particularly announced and the date that it's going to take place, because it kind of like is really interesting that they put it or they made it official at this date, even though like a number of people kind of like seeing this be in the works for some time now. So I'm going to see here if I could go ahead and share the screen here real quick when it comes to this particular announcement. So I'm going to see here if I could expand this thing here for a little bit. Should be on the screen here. Just a second. Let me see if I could get it going. All right, there it is. Yeah. So, all right, you see the promotional banner there, promotional poster. When it comes to this here, it has Teofimo versus Shakur there for January 31st of 2026 there, and it will be on the zone. They do have Matchroom Boxing as the lead promoter for this particular event, which is interesting. They do, have Top Rank included on there. That is, of course, with Teofimo Lopez because he still is there under contract with Top Rank. So it should be. So there you go. All right, it says there, Teofimo versus Shakur set for January showdown in New York City. There, Targala Sheikh, chairman of the General Entertainment Authority and owner of Ring Magazine, has confirmed the highly anticipated fight between Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, which will be for Saturday, January 31st in New York as a headline event for the Ring 6. Excuse me. So, of course, you do have Ring 4 that did take place on November 22nd. Ring 3 was this summer over at the Louis Armstrong Arena there over in Queens. And they're going to have Ring 5 that's coming up for the end of December in Saudi Arabia, of course, headlined by Nayo Inoue there in the main event against Picasso. So, David Allen Picasso finally getting the world title shot. I mean, hey. But now you got Ring 6. There it said it's brought to fight fans by Matchroom Boxing and will be broadcast live exclusively on the Zone Worldwide. Again, this says exclusively on the Zone Worldwide. There can't be no Zone pay-per-view or anything like that. No, it says the Zone Worldwide. Okay. It does have this here as Brooklyn's Teofimo Lopez will be putting the WBO and Ring Magazine junior welterweight titles on the line, taking on current WBC lightweight world champion Shakur Stevenson, going up to 140 for the first time. And it has this as the 4th title defense for Teofimo Lopez. Of course, him getting the win over Arnold Barbosa Jr. There at the Times Square card in May. Of course, Barbosa was the WBO mandatory challenger, and just didn't have much of an effort after like 6 rounds against Teofimo Lopez, and it was like a uneventful fight. Just being real with y'all, it was an uneventful fight there for that particular fight card. All right, so now you got this thing here on the other side. You got Shakur. For Shakur, they got him fighting there just a few miles from his hometown of Newark, New Jersey. Gives him the opportunity to become a 4-weight world champion. Now, he had the win, as I said, through ring 3 over William Zepeda there to retain that WBC lightweight title. 10-2 bout. I was there live, 10-2 bout. Called it as a 10-2 bout. And he just, showed some skills and showed why he is like one of those pound-for-pound fighters. All right. You did have quotes from Turki Al-Sheikh. You did have quotes from Teofimo Lopez. You did have quotes from Shakur Stevenson. Says further details, including ticketing, venue, and additional fights on the card, will be announced in due course. Well, we're pretty much like 2 months away, or as it would say, 8 weeks or so away from this particular bout taking place. So, looking forward to this matchup. As I was saying, they've been talking about it since like early September that the fight would take place. It was just, okay, when would this thing finally be, official or whatever it is. So, with that being said, looking forward to it. You do have these two fighters that have been, floating around or been at the pound for pound rankings. A number of publications may have like top 10 or whatever it is. But as I've been mentioning before, the boxing source, they don't have a pound for pound top 10. They don't have a pound for pound top 12. Well, at least not anymore. Now they have a pound for pound top 16. So, we did show the list some time back. Now we're going to, present it here once again. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen here for those that's watching live. Shout out to everyone that's watching live here. And if you're checking out the replay, salute to you. Now we're going to put up that pound for pound list here once again. Of course, have Terrence Crawford at number 1, Alexander Usyk at number 2, Naoya Inoue there at number 3. Now, going through this list, you do have Shakur Stevenson there at number 8, and you have Teofimo Lopez there at number 13. This is as of November 24th. Of course, you had the results that took place on November 22nd, which did include Ben Rodriguez, David Benavidez, and Devin Haney scoring big wins on that November 22nd card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, you do have Shakur Stevenson, like I said, was able to win a world title in the featherweight division, was able to be the unified champion in the super featherweight division, and now has that WBC lightweight championship. And mentioned there in that press release, this is his opportunity to become a world champion in a 4th weight division. But if he scores a win over Teofimo Lopez, not only will he be a 4-division world champion, he will be the standing lineal champion there at 140 pounds with that win over Teofimo Lopez. For Teo, he will be able to, freely defend that WBO belt. Some people say okay, you're going up against Shakur Stevenson. Yes, Shakur Stevenson is, talented fighter. There, as I mentioned there, pound for pound. But a number of people have been looking for a unification of 140 pounds. And with Teofimo Lopez, he's been pretty much the longest reigning world champion there at 140 pounds. The WBA belt has switched hands multiple times. The WBC belt has changed hands. It may change hands once again, given what's happened with the WBC champion currently. So it may change hands again. You know what I mean? And you do have the IBF champion, that's been newly crowned, but has had a defense or two, and as many know, has the same manager as the WBO champion there, Teofimo Lopez. So There's been a whole lot of, either belts just switching around, or like a number of things where you can't have a unification there at 140 pounds. But this here with Teofimo Lopez, at least for me, is like, okay, you you won your fight against your mandatory challenger there against Arnold Barbosa Jr. So you could have had you were free to defend the title against anyone there in the 140-pound division, including world champions. And I guess that didn't materialize. Flip side, you got a thing there with Shakur Stevenson, him getting the win over William Zepeda, mandatory. He don't have to worry about the mandatory for 12 months, so he could defend the title at the lightweight division against anybody that's out there, including the other world champions. But that wasn't necessarily available, I guess. So that being said, now you're going to have, as I say here for the Boxing Source pound for pound top 16, you're going to have number 8, Shakur Stevenson versus number 13, Teofimo Lopez. Now, there was some mentioning about, this fight and the result of this fight, and if the winner of this fight could make a case to be top 5 pound for pound. Well, people have their pound for pound lists or whatever it is. I mentioned it before. But for me, a win here, I'm not sure about all that. I mean, you got, like I said, you got Terrence Crawford, of course, the undisputed super middleweight champion, was able to defeat Canelo Alvarez in September. You got Alexander Usyk, the undisputed, or was the undisputed, heavyweight champion of the world. Was able to knock out Daniel Dubois, and become undisputed champion again. Then you had the whole thing there with the WBO, and WBO stripped him. So now he don't have the WBO belt, but he's still, undefeated, been 2-division undisputed champion, and beat, three of the top guys or whatever it is in the heavyweight division. Probably could say about 4 or 5 of them, right? And you got Naoya Inoue, of course, multi-division undisputed champion, current undisputed champion at 122 pounds, has an upcoming bout at the end of December in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia against Picasso. And he's been doing his thing. He had a fight, earlier this year or whatever it is, and showed up and, did his thing. So I just don't see where, like, the winner of Shakur Stevenson versus Teofimo Lopez will be able to be above those guys. Ben Rodriguez, he won on November 22nd. He's, on his way to being undisputed at 115 pounds, and he's been a world champion at 115 and 118. Dimitri Bivol, undisputed at light heavyweight before, my back injury and stuff like that. So you kind of had Bivol up there. David Benavidez, like I said, had his win over Anthony Yard, multi-division world champion, very versatile on offense and defense. So I don't know. And you got Devin Haney, of course, now the current WBO welterweight champion. So that's a lot to basically overcome there for the winner of Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez to potentially enter in the top 5 of the pound for pound rankings here. What I got shown. But nonetheless, it's shown as a highly anticipated fight there that's taking place in New York City on January 31st. Now, as far as like the venue, being whether it's Madison Square Garden, or I don't know if they could try to put it at Barclays Center. That would be something if they could put it at Barclays Center. But I don't know. I think it's likely going to be in the Madison Square Garden. Okay. As far as like other fights that could be on there, I'm not sure. Maybe we get a few phone calls if fights that could be in the works. Maybe the manager of Teofimo Lopez could have one of his other fighters on that fight card. And no, I'm not necessarily saying that Richard Hitchens could be on that fight card, but you could have Edgar Berlanga on that fight card. That's a potential thing. Of course, Edgar Berlanga was on a Ring Magazine fight card there in Queens, headline that one there against Hamza Shiraz. We all saw that Edgar Berlanga got stopped against Hamza Shiraz. So I don't know, maybe they have him in position to, I guess, try to get back in the mix or whatever it is. So, we'll have to see if they do something like that where they do have Edgar Berlanga involved in this particular event here for Ring 6. Okay. So you do have that. As they said, more fights will be announced in the coming weeks. Like I said, you got this week, a few weeks that's going on here for December. Then you get into January, and once it's January, they're gonna start, pushing for promotion of that fight card. So you're gonna get the announcement of fights that's gonna take place there in reference to all of that. So we'll see how that goes on that front. Now on the other side there, you do have it to the point where there's that unification bout that's taking place in Puerto Rico with Xander Zayas and Abbas Barao there for that WBO and WBA super welterweight titles. So makes for a very interesting weekend. There, as that would be the end of January, January 31st. Two intriguing bouts there within the super lightweight and super welterweight divisions. So that's going to be really something there to kind of like close out the first month of 2026. Now it's supposed to have something on January 24th or whatever, but that's gonna kind of get things going within the overall schedule. But we'll see how that goes, because as far as I know, I haven't seen much as far as what's going to be official outside of Moses Atama versus Jermaine Franklin, and you got Ray Murray versus Andy Cruz. It's going to be in Las Vegas on January 24th. So we got a number of things here that's going to happen. Hey, also forgot to mention this. For January 31st, over in Newcastle, you do have the IBF Super Welterweight Championship on the line. Baka Murtazalia versus Josh Kelly. So you're going to have 3 of the 4 major titles in the 154-pound division on the line on January 31st. And that's going to be outside of this particular fight that just got announced here for Teofimo Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson. Packed weekend of fights. Looking forward to that. All right. So you did have that announcement that went down. And the other thing here that I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit was the results of last weekend. We did have a few things that did take place. Also, something that happened early in the week last week, as you did have one key bout in, as they say, the quote unquote lower weight classes there, particularly in the bantamweight division. You had the WBC Bantamweight Championship on the line. You had Takuma Inoue versus Tenshin Nasukawa. Tenshin, of course, a star over there in Japan, through kickboxing and whatnot, before being full-time in boxing, had won his first 7 bouts in his 8th professional bout, going up against Takuma Inoue for the WBC Bantamweight Championship. Now, before the bouts that took place on November 22nd, let's talk about the thing there with Bam Rodriguez and him either potentially going for undisputed to start off 2026, or to skip it and see what happens here with the winner of Tenshin Nasukawa and Takuma Inoue for that WBC belt at bantamweight and go after that. But looks like he's going for the undisputed. Shout out to Dante Boxing Talk. Hey, man, it might be the same week. That would be insane if it is. He did have the conversation there with Jamal Charlo, there with Brian Custer. And, he's been saying we've been, trying to get this thing done, get it done, get up against Caleb Plant, get that fight out of the way, and try to have that thing in January, maybe January 31st, or it could be January 24th. Now, my thing on it is sometimes, when they have, when he talks about the Premier Boxing Champions presentation and all that type of stuff, we do have what's upcoming on December 6th in San Antonio, of course, headlined by Isaac Cruz versus Lamont Rose Jr. for that interim WBC Super Lightweight Championship. Now, there's a possibility they may announce something around that time for their next PBC presentation. So we could get an announcement in reference to Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo by then. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be January 31st. It might be January 24th, or it might be, February 6th or 7th or something like that. Yeah. So, but I don't think it's going to be January 31st. Not with all of this stuff that's happening, right now. Like I said, with the unification in Puerto Rico with Xander Zayas and Abbas Barao, the fight that's going to be happening in New York City there with Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson, and that Bakum Murtazaleh versus Josh Kelly is going to be in Manchester for the IBF Super Welterweight Championship. So, that would kind of make it a boxing overload. And that's something that, in some cases it may be very good, but in other cases it's very bad because, even though like, hey, you're trying to get these fight cards and trying to lock down these venues, and these might be the only dates that they have available for those venues for some time. But at the same token, it's like, well, now you're going to be competing against, this other event going on and that other event going on. And whether it's people that's going to be watching on, what is it, the Zone or Amazon Prime or whatever it is, like you're going to be splitting it up. Now you still have the status of the fans not being to the point where, okay, you could get good amount of viewers from both sides or how many viewers you could get. It'll be enough to kind of like say, hey, you get a good enough rating, you know what I mean, worldwide or whatever it is. But we still kind of like having those issues where, yeah, we're gonna have about 3, 4, 5 events at one time. Then you're going to be splitting up those fans, so to speak, as far as like watching the content right there. So we'll see how what happens. Like I said, I'm gonna wait till these next few days come through and see if they're gonna say something about it on December 6th during that telecast. There, of course, on Amazon Prime pay-per-view. But yeah, going back to the thing there with Teofimo and Shakur, like I said, that's going to be a good event. That's going to take place here in New York City. I've had a couple people like tell me that yeah, they were trying to look at rooms from at least a couple of weeks ago for around that time period. But hey, it's New York City. New York City, even in like the wintertime or whatever it is, like these hotel prices, hey, they be crazy sometimes. They be crazy. So I have to see like how that will work out. If I would try to arrange to be out there for that week or that fight week or something like that. If I plan to go out there, plan to cover that event. But it did of course talk about what was going on last week, the previous week, when I talked about the bantamweight division, WBC bantamweight championship, Tenshin Nasukawa falling short to winning a world title there up against Takuma Inoue. But does that mean that Ben Rodriguez could probably go after Takuma Inoue for that bantamweight title? I don't know. He's likely just going to have that achievement of being an undisputed champion first, and then moving up to 118, and then we'll see what happens with Naoya Inoue first here in December, and then you have him fighting on December 27th. It should be December 27th. You're gonna have the thing there with what is it? Junto Nakatani. He's gonna be fighting on December 27th. So if both of them win, then that clash over in Japan, it better be in Japan, is going to take place, and that's going to be the super fight there in Japan, and the winner there would kind of like take that mantle as far as like being the top guy in Japan, and then we'll see if Ben Rodriguez would want to like continue at 118 if he gets undisputed at 115, goes up to 118 and has a belt, and then next after that, see if he goes after the winner of Inoue versus Nakatani at 122 pounds. Because as of right now, for Naoya Inoue, you get to fight with Junto Nakatani at 122. You could potentially have a fight with Bam Rodriguez at 122. There ain't really no rush to, fight at 126. I know that there, he had some plans to fight there at 126, but it's like, well, you could have up to two super fights at 122 pounds if you're able to stay there. First against Junto Nakatani. If you win that, then you could have one against Bam Rodriguez. While at 126, yeah, there would be a number of valid candidates for some good fights. Would it be, as attractive as those bout between Inoue and Bam Rodriguez? Nah, not seeing that. Not seeing that. All right, so did have all that was going on. Also the thing there with Ben Whittaker, wanted to talk about that. Yeah, he had easy work. It was easy work there against Benjamin Gavazi. 1 round knockout. Hit him with a couple, two piece and a biscuit, and Dr. Gavazi out within 1 round. And there was like a silver light heavyweight title there that Ben Whittaker was able to get there with the win. You have him as the WBC silver champion, which means that he would be rising up the rankings there in the WBC. The current world champion is David Benavidez, who, of course, was able to get that win over Anthony Yarde on November 22nd in Riyadh. Now, as far as like Benavidez and what his plans are, he announced that he's going to be, going up to fight Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, who is the WBO and WBA cruiserweight champion. So if Benavidez ends up, vacating that title, then where would Ben Whittaker, kind of like fit in the picture there within that 175-pound division, particularly with the WBC and the fighters that they have out there. Now, you do have the thing going on between Callum Smith and David Morrell Jr. David Morrell is ranked number 2 in the WBC, but they're still trying to do that purse bid with Callum Smith. We'll see what happens by the end of this week. You have a number of other fighters that are there in the rankings. So, hey, maybe Ben Whittaker could have a couple of fights and be in the mix to fight for a world title there at 175. Outside of that, I don't know what they could do there for him. I mean, this is what is supposed to be his first bout there while under Matchroom Boxing, and Matchroom Boxing has kind of like been able to guide fighters to world title shots, been able to work with world champions over the past like 5, 6, 7 years or whatever it is. So they're trying to see here what they can build with Ben Whittaker, particularly there in the light heavyweight division. But you'll have to check out those light heavyweight rankings. They are out there within the boxing source. We kind of like update those rankings there when we can there. So you do have the boxing rankings that are out there currently showing like this is the 175-pound division. You have it there for the WBO, IBF, WBC, and WBA. And you'll actually see like right there for this current juncture, you got Ben Whittaker there at number 9. Now the thing is that the WBC has like had their rankings out there since probably around October, November, something like that. So we'll see where they're kind of put Ben Whittaker there in the rankings, after he has his win. If I can, I'll probably let me see if I could verify this right here. They do have Ben Whittaker there at number 9. As far as I know, they have not updated those rankings yet. So we'll see what happens there on that front. Now, with it being December, there is a WBA convention that's taking place over in Orlando in a couple of weeks. So they're going to be gearing themselves to present their rankings during that convention in Orlando. And that might be something where we get to see some moves within the WBA light heavyweight division. You might see something for a number of these other key divisions out there. So that's something to look out for on this front. But yeah, that's mainly what I had there as far as like that particular bout. You did have fights that were on Pro Box the other day. What was that? Saturday. You also had something there that was on ESPN Knockout. My thing was for the joint that was on ESPN Knockout, right? There was supposed to be a headlining bout on there involving Elijah Pierce and Lorenzo Parra. And the thing about it was, it's like, well, what happened? What happened? I mean, I hadn't seen anything as far as like a fighter missing weight or someone getting sick or whatever it is. Usually, with Elijah Pierce, like he would kind of indicate what was what happened or whatever it is. But as of right now, I hadn't seen anything in reference to that. So I'm like, okay, what was going on? What's going on with all of this? So hopefully within the next like day or so, I'll be able to get it because that that was kind of like crazy there. Yo, what's going on? Thomas Hill in the building. Salute to you here being able to join this live discussion here for the Boxing Source podcast. But yeah, I was talking about the thing there with the fights that were at the Pachanga Resort Casino that was last weekend. And yeah, I have no idea what happened, with all of that. I really have no idea, like what went, what took place or whatever it is. But it was supposed to be, what you have, Jimwell Pacquiao that was on this thing on this fight card, right? That had his pro debut, Emmanuel Pacquiao Jr., Manny Pacquiao Jr., right? And he ended up getting a draw. It was a majority draw, on that. But yeah, you did have, a full fight card, and you were supposed to have a WBO eliminator bout on there between Elijah Pierce and Lorenzo Parra, but nothing really happened with that. And I have not seen anything, where there's like any update reference to that. So that's going to be something that I'm going to look into as well. But that's kind of like what they had going on last weekend. You also had the thing there on Pro Box TV, right? You did have the $1 million man Justin Paldo there in the main event, was able to score a stoppage victory there, and he is competing in the lightweight division. He did say that he is very, very interested in fighting one of those world champions that's out there. Y'all know the world champions. We did talk about Shakur Stevenson. He does have the WBC belt. You do have Tank Davis that does have the WBA belt right now. You do have the newly crowned WBO champion there in Abdullah Mason. Of course, he was able to defeat Sam Dokes on November 22nd. And then you do have what's going on with the IBF, as Raymond Muirtaya is going to be facing Andy Cruz, defending that IBF title. So you're going to see Justin Paldo, seeing if he could get himself in the mix there with one of those world champions. We're going to see if we can hear from his coach, Ronnie Shields, tomorrow. I got to see if I can confirm that he's going to be on tomorrow, live tomorrow. And it's going to be on the War Week Boxing channel there. It's going to be on War Week Boxing. They're not on this particular channel here, through YouTube or Rumble, is going to be on War of Week Boxing, because YouTube should be able to get the thing there for having Coach Ronnie on and having Joe on there. But the Rumble joint, like as far as like being able to add folks, it's like hit or miss right now, and it shouldn't really be like that. So that's why, just to make sure everything's good, we're gonna have it on the War Week Boxing channel here coming up tomorrow. So y'all look for that. We're gonna be sharing the information through social media on how you'll be able to watch that there live. And that's what we got as far as like this week. Do have the midweek report that will be scheduled for Wednesday. I have to, do a couple of things for this week, and then have the Boxing Source podcast that is going to be scheduled for Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We got a couple of interviews that we're going to be posting on here. We might have some more stuff that's going on later this week, so be on the lookout for all of that. Once again, props to everyone that's been able to listen in live and chime in live, watching the replay. Thanks for watching the replay, and this will be available in podcast form also through Spotify. So you'll be able to listen to it, through your earphones, headphones, or whatnot. All right. So, that's what I had in reference to this. I wanted to just, do this real quick. I had like a number of things that, I still have to do, coming off of what last weekend, including, the workout they had for Lamont Rose Jr. That was last Saturday. So, before he's headed out to San Antonio, Texas for his bout against Isak Pitbull Cruz, he did have a workout over in his gym. It was packed. It was like absolutely packed there at the gym. And was a really, really good showing there, with Lamont Rose Jr. You did have his stablemates there at No Excuse. Of course, his brother, Jordan Roach. And you also have undefeated welterweight Ben Johnson. Jordan Roach and Ben Johnson will be on that card in San Antonio, Texas on December 6th. So we'll have information on seeing if we'll be able to view those bouts of Lamont Roach, Jordan Roach and Ben Johnson. And once we, get that information, we'll be able to share it on social media. All right. So all of that pretty much covered everything that, I could here at this particular point. And we'll have more, like I said, tomorrow with Real Boxing with Ronnie Shields. We'll be able to have that on the War Week Boxing channel on YouTube. And then we're back here with the midweek report on Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But yeah, that's, what I got here so far. I'll catch y'all later. All right. Peace out.